Have you ever listened to a person talk for less than a minute and known you weren't going to get along with that person? What did they say? New guy at work. First coffee break he started complaining about his ex who had full custody of the kids for some unknowable reason and also how he'd like to slash her throat with a rusty knife. Nice to meet you too. Don't think I'll be taking breaks with you. New guy started at my job. We were outside smoking on first break. Keep in mind I have never met nor spoken to this dude in my life. He walks up, lights up his cigarette and says, "You know, I think my severe arachnophobia has transformed into an arachnophilia. I've been watching a lot of spider hentai while masturbating." Then he began to describe his new waifu pillow he bought, her name and his plans to marry her. I was speechless. Asked me, "Do you mind if smoke?" Then proceeded to take out a meth pipe. New guy at work. Super fake by being overly excited and super overly comfortable with everyone in the first minute. He's all mammy this and poppy that to everyone and very overly touchy. We were almost all Hispanics there and everyone was uncomfortable. First phone call of the day, he hangs up cursing and taking it super personally that someone hung up on him. Daily occurrence in customer service. After about 6 months, I put in my 2 weeks notice solely because I couldn't work next to or with him anymore. He would also get overly gossipy and personal. My boss rejected my notice and transferred him. He couldn't stand the guy either. No one could. I was listening to the NEXIVM podcast and the clip of the founder saying he has 225 IQ. If I walked into a room and heard someone say that, I'd walk right back out. The quiet boy at school sat next to me and told me how hard he felt when he took a shit and how many times he ejaculated that way. I never sat next to him again. There are different levels to being a psychic. I'm on the purple level so I can talk to the dead set in new employee at my previous job. Nope. I was in a job interview once and the manager cut me off mid-sentence to jump to a weird conclusion. Him, "What do you think the performance of this algorithm would be?" Me, "Oh, it'll be n times." Him, "Oh, you think it's going to be n? You think it'll be n? That's ridiculous. There's no way it would just be n." Me, "You you gotta let me finish speaking." He then cut me off mid-sentence twice more during our conversation. We didn't get along. Dude was a total tool. I met one of my new colleagues at a barbecue that was being hosted by our work. A man, drove with another coworker, a woman and a friend of mine, so we arrived together. When I was alone for a moment, this guy, whom I've never spoken to before, comes up next to me and says, "Yo dude, you hitting that?" Gestures to my friend. I said no. And she also has a boyfriend. He very exaggeratedly says, "Damn yada yada." He got fired 2 years later for sexually harassing an intern. Literally last night, was at a local pool comp and went to introduce myself to my second round opponent. We shake hands and his first words to me are, "Weak fucking handshake bro," followed by, "I hope you like banter mate," then proceeded to talk shit about every aspect of my game. The worst part was he was actually good at pool, so it just seems like he was generally a cunt. Some of his other opponents got it a lot worse than I did as well. Highlight of the night was when the comp host basically yelled in his face, "Everyone in this room fucking hates you," which received a round of applause. He didn't seem to understand why that was. Just banter bro. Edit, a high of the comp is 90% regulars that are there every week. This was the guy's first time playing there. He knew no one except for the couple of mates he brought. I can assure people calling me a liar that he was universally hated. He ended up losing the final, which received more of a response than the host yelling at him, but yeah lol. I don't even know why I'm responding to this. I guess I have never had this much attention on anything I have ever shared on the internet. They talk negatively about someone else in a very judgy way. There was this mom in my daughter's school who seemed to know everyone. She talked to me and she spoke so bad about these people. Then moments later I saw her interacting in a friendly way with those she was judging. My eyes rolled so much I could see my brain telling me not to get involved with her. And I was right, because by the time school year ends, her friends hated her and they were talking behind her back too. I hate that our boss is a chick. Bitches make the worst bosses. Lunch break of his first day on the job. She showed up to a little get-together and the person who invited her said that they would be taking bets on who could sit with her for more than 30 minutes. $10 per person, winner kept the pot. I assumed they were just being rude and planned to tell her of her friend's plans as soon as she showed up. She walked in, looked at me and scoffed and asked if the gray car outside belonged to me. I said yes. She told me that with the money that car cost I could have bought something nicer. Okay, well whatever. I went to get a drink and sat to watch the crowd gather around her. I already didn't like her, but she went on to tell everyone about how she could never date someone who had a crappy credit score or couldn't pay their vehicles off after buying it. Someone who wanted to quit the contest asked for a cigarette. She opened up her purse and showed everyone a fresh pack of smokes and then told everyone why she doesn't smoke and why anyone who asks for a cigarette is either too broke to buy them or doesn't plan ahead of times. The guy asked her for one of her cigarettes. She said no and put them back in her purse. She talked about all the cars she bought. Basically her parents would co-sign for her and pay the car off to build her credit and she would give them a few thousand to pay them back. She was nuts and wouldn't stop talking. I disliked her but was also fascinated with her. She was super weird. Update, so I have gotten a few questions about this girl and that night. Also, who is Gina? There was something like 15 to 20 people there and most entered the contest. I think the pot got up to $100 to $120. The winner was just some guy who I didn't know. He spent the money getting everyone McDonald's and beer, so he was pretty cool. She was about 22 to 23. She had just finished getting her high school diploma because she had dropped out to make money according to her. I think she sold some milkshake things and fitness plans with some MLM. For those wondering what happened to her, I'm not 100% what happened to her. She wasn't my friend, but she did show up to a few parties I was at and she seemed calmer. She used to bring her own bottle of liquor and wouldn't share, which was kind of funny because on one occasion they caught her filling her bottle with a bottle of Jack that someone had brought and left on the kitchen counter, but she swore that all she drank was Hennessy and Fireball. Parent of one of my kids' friends at school said there was a mouse in their house and his wife wanted him to kill it, but he didn't want to kill any creatures. He wants to make friends with them instead. But wife insisted, so he threw his shoe at it and eventually managed to hit it, but it wasn't dead, so he threw his shoe at it another 4 times. It still wasn't dead, so he poured boiling water over it to kill it. It still didn't die, so he poured boiling water over it again. It still wasn't dead, so he decided to leave it alone in the hopes that it would peacefully pass away. The logic of being too squeamish to kill something, and instead decide to torture it to death slowly in the most agonizingly painful way, absolutely blew my mind. Meet your teacher day. Before my kiddo started kindergarten, and this other parent literally bragged that her kid was completely illiterate, couldn't stand being read to, and she hated reading too. He learned I'm a physicist, and immediately started talking about infinite energy. Asked a guy what he does at a business networking event. Well, I'm a chiropractor but looking to get out. How come? All these Me Too accusations. In another state I had 3 of them. Good thing none of them went to the bar. Edit, he probably said board instead of bar. As soon as he started complaining about Me Too accusations, I pretty much tuned him out. Years ago, me and my ex-husband went to see a movie with an older colleague of his. Before the movie we had dinner at like a chain restaurant steakhouse type place. Staff on the floor was all 20-ish. I never met this man before, but in the first few minutes of sitting down and looking at the menu, he very confidently told us how he came there a lot and flirted with the female staff because they love the attention. The best part? His daughter worked there. All I could think was how I would literally cringe myself through the floor if I was 20 and my 50-year-old dad came into my place of work and perved on my coworkers because he didn't understand that they only put up with him cause they are paid to do so. The new neighbor who after introducing himself pointed to his chest and says, "Instant asshole, just add beer." That's what the family says. Nah, you're not gonna be neighbor pals. Fuck you, or you were an asshole even without beer. I know I'm not supposed to ask, but I need to know. It's not for work or anything. What religion are you? HR manager. We had just moved into a new house. An older gentleman, he was 65 and I was 35 at the time, came across the street towards me and stuck out his hand. I shook it and he said, "We love new neighbors. As long as they're white."